exceed 2021-42. This is an ordinance amending the schedule of salaries and wages adopted pursuant to Article 14, Chapter 11 of the Municipal Code of the City of Plainfield, New Jersey, 1971.
Questions or comments from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Can we just more context to this conversation? When are the times that we can amend these salaries? I know that there's only a particular time for the mayor, but what are the timeframes in which salaries can be amended for these elected positions?
I can certainly address that, Council President. Councilwoman Davis, the mayor's salary may not be increased or decreased during his term. So therefore, the actions that we take in 2021 cannot go into effect until 2022, which will be the start of a new term. As for council, it can be done annually, and it corresponds to the budget year, and that's set forth in the charter. So for the mayor, it would be every 4 years. For the council, it can be done annually. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I think it was important to provide that context because I know a lot of residents had questions about maybe the timing of this and why it happened after the election, but not just this mayor, but every mayor. It cannot happen during a mayoral term. It has to happen at the end of one term before the beginning of the next term.
That is completely correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think my next comment or concern is at what point do we say this is the threshold for a part-time salary, right? Like at what point do we say that, okay, we've reached the threshold and maybe we need to conduct a charter change to change this position to a full-time position? I think that that's a concern for a lot of residents. I think that's something that this body needs to consider in making these decisions. Like, what is the threshold that says, okay, this is enough for part-time work? And what is the threshold that says that this is enough for that we need to now move to full-time? Is it a salary threshold? Is it a population threshold? Like, at what point do we say, hey, maybe we need to appeal to the legislator about changing the charter to change this from a part-time position to a full-time position?
Councilwoman, if I could just address the issue of part-time. I challenge anyone, council member of the public, to find anything in the charter or code that says anything about part-time. It doesn't exist. It doesn't say anything about the position being part-time. If you get a call from a constituent at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you can't tell them you're off the clock. The job of an elected official is a 24/7 job, and there's nowhere in the code to speak of or the charter that refers to it as a part-time job. I've looked for that, and I haven't found that. And I think that as an elected official yourself, you know that it's much more than a part-time job.
I don't disagree with you about what these hours or these parameters are around like part-time and full-time. I don't disagree with you in that. But are you saying that the charter does not speak to a part-time or full-time position for the mayor?
Correct. The charter and the code do not put any hour requirements, do not say it is a part-time or a full-time. It's just the job of mayor, whatever it takes to run this city, to act as the the individual in charge of the day-to-day operations of the city. That's what it is. If it's 24 hours a day, that's what the job requires. That's what the job requires.
Oh.
Are you done, Council?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some comments here, and I think Councilwoman Davis's points are well meant, and I understand where she was going with that. But I think that one thing we need to understand is that these are not really jobs. And I think when we talk about how they're full-time or part-time, they're not jobs. This is public service. We chose to run for this. Some, most, all, maybe, whatever, put our own money into running for these positions. We all had careers or were retired when we ran, so we were getting pensions and Social Security, and we did this to give back to our communities, which is what people do. The $15,000 a year salary, I guess you call it now, is a stipend to offset, getting that call at 10:30 at night or 11 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning or going out in snowstorms and doing that. But that is why we did this. We did this to give back to our communities. We did not do this so that we could increase our salaries and make more money and have, just get more taxpayer money. That is not what this is all about. And I think that for those of us who vote for this really missed the point of the whole civics presentation earlier. I thought the timing of that couldn't have been any better. We are first of all, we have elected officials driving vehicles without council permission. We have most of the council has half the wardrobe provided by taxpayer money with embroidered logos on it. 4 years ago, the mayor got over 100% raise. The council got over a 50% raise. Now the council is going to get a 65% raise and the mayor is going to get 13%. That's embarrassing. This is why people hate politics. This is why people hate politicians. This is why people hate government. This is gross. This is absolutely gross. And the reason for those who are wondering that called in, the reason it occurs after the election is because it has to be done in 2 readings and then it takes effect in 20 days when people are sworn in next year, or we begin our next term of council, which happens in January when we reorg. So that's why this occurs. If this is such a great idea, then Councilwoman Welch should have mentioned it when she was running for election. And the mayor should have mentioned it in all of his advertisements when he was running that he thinks he needs a raise. The reality is he knows it's not great. He knows people hate it. He knows it's inappropriate. That's why they wait until after the general election. So I'm voting as adamantly against this as I possibly can. And if this passes on the second reading, I am not taking the raise. I am not taking it. You can make, I'll sign something to the city. You adjust the payroll deductions or credits that are done and keep it in the city. This is embarrassing.
Council President, can I speak for a second on some of the things that were brought up?
Sure.
So Councilman McKenna just mentioned that it would be 13% for the mayor, and that would be over the course of a 4-year period. He's going back to 2018. But I just want to stress that this goes, like we talked about, this can only be done at a certain time in the year. It cannot be done for the next 4 years for the mayor. So we're talking actually about an 8-year stretch of time, 13% over 8 years, which comes down to actually even less than inflation.
Can you do that math? Let's put the 4 and the 8. Next year, he's going to get it in January. He would get a 13% raise.
Right, so he'll end at that same salary 4 years from now.
Oh, I don't care what he ends at. I'm saying that it's going to be a 13% increase.
Okay.
Right, but it's for an 8-year period.
It's not. It's for a 4-year period. His last one was a 4-year period.
So I watched the last council meeting, and what I noticed in there was 2 of the council people who had voted against it had mentioned that this is something that should be done progressively, but because it wasn't done progressively, it snowballed to such a big number that they weren't comfortable. So what we're trying to do is course correct and now do this on a progressive basis so that it doesn't become such a shocking number, as was mentioned last time.
So again, but that being said, how did you get to 65%? That's not gross.
Can I speak?
Let her continue to speak. She was speaking. Stop interrupting.
Council President, I call the question.
If do you still want to say some words?
Yeah,
I call the question. I call the question.
Council President, was there a motion made? Because it's my understanding of Robert's rule, the person who makes the motion can call the question.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Council President, I think we should let the VA finish what she was saying.
Okay, I'm fine with that. She was mid-sentence and she was interrupted. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you. So I just wanted to also mention that in the last time that there were salary increases on the agenda, the then business administrator had presented some salary comps for similarly situated municipalities. I checked those salary comps today, and those salaries have actually gotten even higher. So municipalities like Irvington, East Orange, Perth Amboy, Linden, all those municipalities that are similarly situated to us, those mayors and those councils are making still significantly more even after this proposed ordinance, if it were to be passed. So we're still looking at numbers like 123,000, 141,000, 48,000 for council. We're still looking at much bigger numbers in similarly situated municipalities. And again, I just want to say, when you look back and look forward to 2026, a lot of this comes out to being pretty much on par with inflation. And again, not to berate the conversation about, is this full-time, is this part-time, but we all know that, all of you and the mayor himself are working around the clock. The mayor's here, he usually comes in around 5:30, 6 o'clock. He's here till 11, and he's here early in the morning as well. So especially now when a lot of meetings are done on Zoom, he's working all day for the city. So I just wanted to make sure that all of those points were put out there for everyone to be aware before we went to a vote.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your input. Any other questions or comments from council colleagues?
I just have one more comment since nobody else does. I think comparing ourselves to the rest of the state is ridiculous too, because these are not jobs. This is public service. And the rest of the state is about as corrupt as you could possibly get, which is why our taxes are the highest in the country. So the fact that the county commissioners gave themselves yet another raise, I think they just did it 2 years ago, is just ridiculous. It's like pigs in a trough. And no wonder our taxes are so high and we get such a terrible reputation.
Yeah. We certainly note that as a city, and that this council hasn't raised taxes for 2 years. And I know that there's a commitment to continue that trend, especially in light of the pandemic and so forth.
Council President,
yes, go ahead. Go right ahead.
I believe Corporation Council is trying to say something.
Oh, no, thank you, Councilman. I was just waiting my turn. I just wanted to acknowledge for the council president, there was a question regarding Councilman Cray's calling of the question. That was a valid motion at the time in which he made it. And if the council president seeks a second, that would be the appropriate time. It would be the appropriate time, because that was an appropriate motion.
Okay. So I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Okay, clerk, can I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
No.
McKenna,
1,000 times no.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Welch,
Yes.
Vice President Good,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
It's 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Motion passes.
Okay. A total of 60 minutes has been allocated for all public comments to be presented.